Welcome to the 11 a.m. podcast here for the Weather Guru as we continue to follow Hurricane Beryl here as it makes its way past Grand Cayman Islands. It made its way past Grand Cayman Islands sometime this morning between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. was its closest point of approach, and now it's rapidly pulling away from the Cayman Islands and making its way up towards the Yucatan Peninsula. Now this storm is weakening. The current statistics on it's a Category 3 with winds of 115 miles an hour. That makes it a low-end Category 3. And pressures come up to 971 millibars, and that will continue to come up throughout the day today, meaning a weakening system down to a Category 2 probably by the next advisory, the 2 p.m. advisory, or the 5 p.m. advisory. It should be down to a Category 2 with winds of less than 110 miles an hour or less in the center of circulation. Now, it is suffering from moderate to heavy wind shear, a pocket of wind shear that is about to enter in the next 6 to 12 hours as it approaches the Yucatan Peninsula, and this may gradually weaken it down to a Category 1 with winds between 70 and 90 miles an hour at the core of the system as it makes its initial landfall, initial approach into the Yucatan Peninsula, anywhere from Tampico to Cancun, Quintana Roo. Any of those points or parishes could be affected by this system. Now, of course, the most uncertain part, of course, will be what happens to the system after it passes the Yucatan. And Texas is still in play with this system. Southern Texas, according to the models, is still in play with this system as well. Current conditions at Owen Roberts International Airport over in Grand Cayman shows rain is still falling, temperature of 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are blowing at the south-southeast as the system has passed already at 22 miles an hour, gusts up to 33 miles an hour. So they're still getting some tropical storm force gusts, but sustained winds have died down dramatically there. And they're pretty much getting what Jamaica got yesterday, tropical storm conditions, with a few people getting hurricane conditions on that southern coast. And we know most of the beaches on Cayman Island, on Grand Cayman, is on the south end of the island, the 7 Mile Beach, famous 7 Mile Beach there in Georgetown, the capital there in the protected harbor. In any event, the system is well away. It's already about 100 miles west of Cayman already, Grand Cayman, and this will continue to impact. And you notice another thing too here is that the movement has slowed only 2 miles an hour down to 18 miles an hour. This will not be the case when it gets in the Gulf. When it gets in the Gulf of Mexico, the movement of this system is definitely going to slow down. As you see, the data points here are further spaced out. So the system is definitely forecast to slow down somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, in the Bay of Campeche, once it crosses over the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, this land interaction that it's going to cross over, it will have some impact on this system. And when it comes out, it's going to be a tropical storm, a strong tropical storm, maybe 60 mile an hour tropical storm or something like that, emerging Saturday morning. The models are in good agreement that it's going to head north, but how far north, nobody is sure of that until after it crosses the Yucatan Peninsula. Then the models will have a better grip on it. So anybody have interest near the Texas border, Corpus Christi, Brownsville, Harrigan, Texas, the Valley, Rio Grande Valley area in northern Mexico, and also all the way up towards Victoria, and possibly even South Padre Island. And so all these Berry Islands here up here should monitor closely come Friday night for where this system, after it merges off the Yucatan Peninsula, for impacts. Now, another thing to notice too in the public advisory here, the watches and warnings remain the same. However, the hurricane force winds have shrunk down tremendously to only 30 miles out from the center. It's shrinking because the eye is collapsed and it's open to the southwest. A closed eye would be better, would mean strengthening, and obviously a visible eye would mean, deep strengthening, that stadium effect that we saw back when it was a big time Category 5. The system has maxed out a long time ago in terms of that, and tropical storm force winds still extend out 160 miles from the center. However, like I said, it is very lopsided. If you look at the storm analysis here, we've got almost no convection on that western side there of the system. It has a very ragged appearance and unshoveled appearance, and it's very lopsided, with all of the thunderstorms blowing across most of the far northeast quadrant and the northwest quadrant. So it's discombobulated, and this is what happens when you get wind shear, which is basically a change of wind in directions at different speeds at different altitudes. And this is what you get at the low and middle levels and the upper levels of the atmosphere when you don't have a system that's vertically stacked and the core of the system, maybe some winds are higher flight level winds. Flight level winds can be higher, up to 20 to 30% higher than what's on the ground, what's actually happening at the surface. And we saw that with Jamaica yesterday, where it came in, skirted along the southern coast. And yes, there were some hurricane force gusts and winds on the southern side, but officially, it did not make a landfall. And it was mostly from reports coming out of Jamaica. Most people were telling me was that it's just more like a tropical storm, and some winds and some trees down and stuff like that, but nothing crazy substantial. So that's great news, and great news for Cayman as well. I believe they experienced some of the same things earlier this morning. Now that the system is pulling away, we have to focus on the Yucatan Peninsula and possibly the Texas coastline here. And if we look at the wind history here, we can see that it has a big tropical storm force winds, and that's mostly on the eastern side of this system here. Some high cirrus clouds and some high little garden variety showers could affect Cuba as well, and Pinar del Rio, the islands off of Cuba, as well. So we don't want to lose sight of that. But it just be rain, actually be needed rain for them, as they haven't got a lot of rain in western Cuba anyway. Now, as far as Mexico, it's the same thing as well, but they still should prepare. I see a lot of people are boarding up on the Mexican coast here, anywhere from Tampico down to Cancun and Quintana Roo, and also on the northern side here, the tropical storm warning. So they want to be prepared too. Belize, you're almost out of the woods here. You have a tropical storm watch. You should be fine. You're going to be on the southern weaker end of the system here, and most of the convection is not on the south and west side. So Belize, you should be absolutely fine here, with just the occasional breezy and little shower that may pass through from time to time as it gets ready for a landfall. So we're looking at the landfall here time frame here. Hurricane Beryl should be making a landfall here in the Yucatan Peninsula sometime tomorrow morning, Friday morning. 8 a.m. Friday morning, it should be making a landfall into the Yucatan Peninsula. And so all interest there should be monitored this as a Category 1. I believe it should be a Category 1 borderline hurricane with winds somewhere between 75 and 80 miles an hour. And it'll quickly weaken, disintegrate into a tropical storm as it emerges back into the Bay of Campeche. And then all bets are off of how far north this thing goes, because it's controlled by this weakening high pressure that I told you about, that the high pressure ridge was going to weaken. I told you about that 2 or 3 episodes ago yesterday, or the beginning of yesterday, that this ridge of high pressure here that's in control, that's steering the steering barrel around it, is weakening and moving to the east. And so depending on how far east it continues to move tonight and tomorrow after we get off the Yucatan Peninsula will determine how quickly north it is steered and how far north it's steered up the Texas coast, or possibly even on the border of close to the Houston area. I don't think Houston to be in the cone of uncertainty, but it's possible that they could get up towards Victoria, possibly, or something like that. Some of these islands appear to make a landfall later on, a second landfall later on as discharge. So sometime Monday, possibly Tuesday, they may have to adjust that, because the system is going to slow down here. And once it begins to make that turn to the north, and then northwest, and then north, and it will bring a lot of heavy rain to somebody, somewhere, anywhere from South Padre Island up to Victoria, these areas here, these inlets here, possibly even as far north as the Houston, Galveston area. We will find that out possibly by later on Thursday night and into Friday morning. The models will have a better handle on that, and also we'll know how much weaker this high pressure is that's above the system, steering it like that. So that's what we're working with here. We are very thankful that the system is moving on, and it is weakening. So expecting the next 2 p.m. advisory and the 5 p.m. advisory to be downgraded to a Category 2 storm hurricane with winds somewhere around 110 to 105 to 110 miles an hour. And that's conservative, because on the satellite presentation here, it looks very degraded. And there is no eye. There is an eye, but it's clouded over. And the deep convection that we saw earlier with the bright white cloud tops all the way around the donut eye is completely gone. And that's to be expected. Now, there's also a chance that dry air entrainment gets into it. But the Gulf water temperatures now are at 83 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit. And that will continue to be the case. So it'll have fuel to work with. The issue is 2 things, is that once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, we're looking at how much wind shear, northeasterly wind shear, would be blowing across here. Okay, that's number 1. And the second factor is the speed at which it's going to be going, because it's going to be slowing down, but nobody knows how much it's going to be slowing down. Is it going to be moving northwest at 10 miles an hour, or north-northwest and then make that turn to the north at like 3 or 4 or 5 miles an hour, that makes a big difference, because the more time it has to strengthen out here in the Gulf of Mexico, then that means it could get back up to possibly a category 3. It's not out of the question with this much real estate, at least a couple hundred miles of water left after it reemerges from the Yucatan Peninsula. So right now they have it as a tropical storm coming in as a borderline hurricane, a minimal hurricane at 75 miles an hour. But if this thing slows down sometime Saturday afternoon while it's trying to make that turn to the north, northwest, and then north, listen, we could be talking about a category 2 or possibly borderline category 3 again, with winds up to 115 miles an hour. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. All interest from, like I said, South Padre Island all the way up to, I would even include Houston and Galveston and Beaumont in this area here, Lake Charles, because that's the area that I'm looking at, because I believe the high pressure will erode completely and slow down eventually, and as it makes its turn to the north, and this thing is going to just crawl toward the coast, as we've seen a lot of times with these systems. It's not going to be a fast moving system. Once it makes that turn to the northwest and then north, crawling ever so slowly at 5 miles an hour or something like that, it's going to slow down tremendously. And then this means that this time frame here is going to be pushed back to possibly a landfall. Somebody's going to get a landfall possibly along the Texas Louisiana coast by Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. So that's the time frame I'm looking at. But like I said, the models are catching up. It's getting there, but we'll see what happens from that point on. Now, Grand Cayman, the latest observations from the airport was showing sustained winds around 29 miles an hour, gusts to 35 miles an hour. So conditions are improving there. They got tropical storm conditions. I don't think they experienced hurricane force sustained winds there. That missed it, as the hurricane force winds only extend out 30 miles from the center from this system. So both Jamaica and Cayman missed the hurricane force winds that were associated with Beryl. So this became like a tropical rainstorm or a tropical storm that you typically would see during this time of year in June or July, that would hit, that would typically, we would look at climatologically, we would look at in this area. Climatologically speaking, in July, we're looking right here in the Central American area for that Central American gyre that develops. And then we're also looking in the Gulf of Mexico and also off the coast of Bahamas, the eastern side of Florida, when frontal passages come. That's where we typically would be looking. But Hurricane Beryl was an anomaly. It started all the way in the Cape Verde season and deeper in a southern, even in a lower latitude than most of the forecasters had been predicting. It got into a perfect pocket of no Saharan dust, no wind shear, and it grew to this category 5 monster, making its way through and it hit Curacao, with still prayers for Curacao and Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They took the brunt of the system for real. They took a category 4 hurricane, with winds over 150 miles an hour, higher gusts to 175, and 80% of the homes were damaged there. So just our prayers and thoughts are with them as well, and also with Jamaica and Cayman, because they did have a storm, regardless of whether it was not a weak storm or a strong storm. It still was a storm, and it just goes to show you that we have to stay prepared. We have to stay weather-wise and ready throughout every storm that comes. And so once again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you the wind history here as well. You can see that the hurricane force winds continue to shrink in the storm denoted in red. Tropical storm force wind expand out like a typical storm would be, over 185 miles an hour from the center, 185 miles from the center, I should say. And it has that little window of opportunity to weaken. It's about maybe 150 to 200 miles right now, southeast of the Yucatan Peninsula. So it has the opportunity to continue to weaken down to a category 1, which we fully expect here, that it'll weaken to a category 1 minimal hurricane with 75 to 80 mile an hour winds, or 85 mile an hour winds, and then it'll quickly weaken as it goes over this dusty flat terrain of northern Mexico here, and then it'll get back into the Gulf, and that's when things are going to get very interesting for Texas coastline and actually northern Mexico too as well, and the Rio Grande Valley, because you could have flooding there. Now you can see the probabilities here. It's 100% chance or a 90% chance in purple, or in purple, that the Yucatan Peninsula will get tropical storm force conditions, which means winds around 39 miles an hour or greater, sustained winds, and then they'll have gusts occasionally, up into the 50, 60 mile an hour, sometimes 70 mile an hour range, but that'll last for a short time as the system is already losing steam, and it depends on, like I said, if it even makes it to the coast as a hurricane. Right now, the National Hurricane Center has it as a kind of like a category 2, category 1, but I'm not so sure looking at the satellite here if it's going to even be that. So, but they'll keep it at they'll probably keep it as a hurricane, so it'll be like a category high-end category 1 probably, somewhere between the wind, somewhere between 95 or 100 miles an hour. And the pressure will be way up by that time. The pressure will be over 980 by that time before it makes landfall into the into the Yucatan Peninsula, sorry. And then that's what we're looking at here. Now, you can also see that as far as all interest in Texas, I would be preparing for that, making your preparations on Friday night into Saturday morning, because it's clear that you're going to be getting some effects from this system in southern Texas here in the Rio Grande Valley and then northward. I personally would take, this is where the center of the storm is going to pass, but I personally think that in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think that this storm is going to curve more to the north like this, and that will put more of the northeastern Texas Bay at risk here. But like I said, it's too early to tell. But the high pressure is weakening right now. That's above it, and that's steering this thing. But it's too early to tell. So we'll know more about that. I'll come back on later, probably tonight, and then or either into Friday morning, and I'll discuss that. But I'm looking more toward the Beaumont, Lake Charles, Galveston, Houston area as being impacted more with a landfall probably just west of all that metro population, somewhere in here, as opposed to way down here. And that's what I'm looking at. So, but like I said, it's too early to tell. This is where I tell. But everything is happening, like I said earlier, the scenario that the high pressure weakens and allows a squeeze play for Beryl to come up into the north, right in here, to the west of the big Galveston Bay area. And that's what's happening. So, and also, like I said, the system is going to slow down. Right now, it's moving west-northwest at 18 miles an hour. So it's going to come in fast into the Yucatan. But once it gets out, reemerges into the Bay of Campeche, that high pressure is going to be severely eroded. And that's when it's going to continue to try to make that turn to the north at a slow pace and possibly even stall out if the high pressure moves far enough east off the coast of Georgia or something. I mean, this thing could lose its steering currents. And even though it'll be a weaker system, it'll have all this warm water in the Gulf to work with, ladies and gentlemen, and it could possibly get up to a Cat 3 again, no question at all. No doubt they can get up to a major hurricane if that scenario plays out. So I wouldn't be surprised. Remember, rapid intensification has been the name of the game for all of these systems, especially in an active hurricane season like this. We're expecting 25 named storms, so it's not out of the question that we get that it re-intensifies into a major hurricane in the northern Gulf. That's not out of the question. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're thankful that it's past all the major land masses besides the Yucatan Peninsula right now. And like I said, just keep a close watch out anywhere if you have interest in Texas and southern Texas, just make sure to keep a close eye out for them, because that can be a concern, and that will be a concern for later on this week in the forecast period. But so far, looking at the storm structure once again, you can see that the eye is open on the south west and southeast side. So we have an open eye, we have a clouded eye that's not visible on radar here, and we also have convection that is scattered. Convection is scattered way off to the northeast, and that inner core, some of the cloud tops are warming on the southeast side, is denoted by that bright orange, and not those deep whites and purples that we saw around a donut eye as it made its way through the Grenadines and up, it was coming toward Jamaica full force. So we don't see that anymore. That's a great sign. The pressure is rising. 971 millibars is starting to come up, and so the next advisory, I expect the pressure to come up a little bit more to 973, and then by 8 p.m. tonight or 11 p.m. advisory, it should be well into the 980s, and that denotes a category 1 possibly coming into the Yucatan. As a hurricane, a minimal hurricane, somewhere between, the Yucatan Peninsula there, somewhere between Tampico and all that places, and it'll be a minimal hurricane with winds around, they'll probably keep it around 85 or 90 miles an hour, but it's actually weaker, depending on, because I don't see a whole lot of convection here as well with the system, like I said. So the good news is that Cayman survived. They had just tropical storm force gust conditions, a few rain, but the main core of the hurricane winds did not hit Cayman. It stayed well offshore, some 40 or 50 nautical miles, and it passed by really quickly, and they still just left with overcast skies and breezy here. As you can see, Grand Cayman and Georgetown and all those areas in Little Cayman, they're still under breezy, overcast, and some brief, kind of drizzly, poor visibility there, obviously, but it's pulling away fast. It's already 100 miles away from west-northwest of Grand Cayman, Georgetown, and it's pulling away fast on its rendezvous to the Yucatan Peninsula here. Now, I want to show you something else here. These storms, these planes go into it. These P3 Orion planes go into it, and they make passes here. And you can see the pressure there is up to 972 on that southwest quadrant. And then when they passed through the center, it was 970. So they took a balance and went 971 millibars. So you can see the pressure is rising here as of the latest aircraft reconnaissance planes. We have 3 aircraft reconnaissance planes that make passes into the storm. They fly sometimes out of Miami, sometimes out of Louisiana, out of Keesler Air Force Base, or sometimes out of Miami, or other places to intersect the storm through the eye and through the northeast quadrant. They make passes through all the quadrants, and they get the pressure readings by dropping these drop sounds down through the atmosphere at a certain height, atmosphere height, and they drop these little sensors down called drop sounds, and they go down to the ocean floor, and it collects data, and it sends it back to the plane, and they send it back to the hurricane center, and that's how they get it. So you see here, the official pressure is 971 millibars. 972 was in that southwest quadrant. So you can see it is rising tremendously here as of the latest reconnaissance mission here, mission number 19 by NOAA. That's our National Atmospheric, and they do a fantastic job there of getting this data to us here through and relaying it back to us here through the atmosphere. So the system is weakening. It's good news. This mission has been finished. They'll make a desert pass into it, probably providing you with the 2 p.m. update and the 5 p.m. update there. So I just wanted to show you that as well. And let's go back, and I want to show you also the courtesy of Tropical Tidbits here. I want to show you the sector here. I want to show you the full Atlantic combo here, because I want to show you everything that's going on in the region here, and just to show you that it is quieting down here somewhat as we head into middle of July. Happy 4th of July to everyone, for those in the States as well. Independence Day today, and so I just want to get that. But you can see here, it's quieting down here. We have this tropical wave here that's moving through the Central Caribbean. It is not forecast to be anything right now. We have an upper level low past east of Bermuda here. When we have some little waves coming down here at a lower latitude close to the Intertropical Convergence Zone, the ITC, which is a belt of moisture around the Earth. Nothing is going on there. We have Saharan dust to the north, and so it's pretty clear. So the next week and a half, 2 weeks, it should be pretty quiet here. Obviously, the Gulf of Mexico is quiet right now until Beryl gets in there right there. And then right here, we have this tropical wave that I was talking about that a couple of days ago. Remember, we were saying that, oh, this could be Debbie. No, it didn't work out that way. And now it's just bringing a lot of showers here. So this could bring some showers and storms later on to, it's bringing some showers right now to Puerto Rico. So if you're in Puerto Rico, Zunque, the southern side, the eastern side, Fajardo, it could bring some rain to you guys. And then also to the British Virgin Islands and the American Virgin Islands, St. Croix, St. John, and those islands there as well. Now, and this tropical wave will continue westward, and it could bring some rain to Jamaica again and Haiti again, possibly on later on in Friday in the forecast period. So that's what's going on there Atlantic wide. We also have a storm out here in the Pacific, this invest that is growing. It's starting to have good convection there, but it's moving away from the coast of Mexico and Baja California. It could graze by Baja California, but we'll see how that plays out later. So I just want to give you the full scope here of what's going on in the Atlantic, the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, Pacific, Eastern Pacific, and that's what we have going on. This is the dynamic that you see right here. Now you can see that the clockwise, you can also see the clockwise spin of that high pressure that is weakening and eroding here, and these showers, these ridge runner showers that are running above it here. You can see it spreading out, fanning out, running in a clockwise direction. That's that high pressure I was talking about that is going to be steering Beryl like this around into somewhere into the Texas-Louisiana coastline, and that's what I fully expect to happen. It is weakening. It is move. If it continues to move eastward, then that means that Beryl has another little squeeze play window of opportunity to get closer to that Houston, Galveston area and not southern Texas. But we'll wait and see. Right now, the models have it south. And heading toward more Victoria, Corpus Christi area, and coming in for a landfall there. So that's what I was telling you about. You can see the pattern right here clearly on this brightness and the water vapor imagery here as I'm showing you here. So there's Beryl down there. Like I said, it's very discombobulated. It's going to continue to weaken down to a category 2 probably this afternoon. Category 1 minimal for landfall here on the Yucatan Peninsula sometime on Friday morning there as it makes its landfall. And then afterwards it's going to slow down when whatever reemerges in the Gulf of Mexico as a tropical storm, as with Beryl, will slow down, and that's when we have to worry about the Texas-Louisiana coastline as we continue throughout the day. So on that weekend, Sunday and into Monday. So that's what's going on with Beryl. I just wanted to bring you the latest. Thank you for joining me here, and I'll be back with later on updates as it becomes available